My name is Russ Aubrey, and I live at 4949 Grizzly Peak in Berkeley. And for the record, Berkeley is our mailing address, but we actually are situated in the city of Oakland. So when we tell the story of the Tree of Hope, and so the story begins with Larry Welch, who owns a company called Trees R Us in Sacramento. And Larry learned of all the damage to trees and homes in the area. And he wanted to be one of the first to populate the area with trees and to let people know that people outside of the area were thinking of those that had lost their homes, and especially loved ones and lost their lives. So he was looking around the city of Oakland for city parks, for schools, any place where he could donate a 35-foot high cedar tree and have it be represent those that have lost their lives and start the population, and that the tree would represent hope to people to rebuild. He finally found my next door neighbor, Vic Cassman, whose home did burn to the ground. And Vic donated my property as a place where he could put the tree. I met with Larry and we accepted his offer. It became a very daunting event because, first of all, how do you pick up an 11-ton tree and place it on the back of your property? Well, Larry went up to Auburn and he cut down a very large tree and he tried to keep the taproot. But the trouble is, when he got to Dixon, he was stopped by the highway patrol and said, you can't carry a load longer than 30 feet. So he had to go back to Auburn, redig another tree that was only 30 feet tall and bring it back. We got a hold of Biggie Crane, who donated their time, and they lifted the tree hours before the ceremony was going to be given here at the house to light the tree. Then we had to light the tree. And we got a hold of the city of Oakland, and they loaned us one of their cherry pickers, utility trucks, and they lifted that up and they put up all the lights that had been donated by Farmers Insurance, who had been our insurance carrier. Then we needed electricity. So Gills Electric in Oakland donated their services, and they installed a 50 amp circuit just to light the tree and hooked it up to our outfit. The Boy Scouts of Piedmont came by and they helped clean up. So it became a community event almost from the very start, that this tree that was donated by Larry to represent the lives that were lost, that we would not forget what happened, that tree would be lit. And so in the first week of December, the mayors of Oakland and dignitaries and those people who had lost their lives, along with the press, came to the house and we lit that tree. And we told people that this was the tree to welcome you home. This was our back porch light, and that we would like people to know that those who have lost their lives, including Chief Riley and 24 others, that they are in our memories, and that this tree represents those people, and that we will remember them. And so for the next 10 years, my wife and I would light that tree. The only problem was at the end of the third year, because of high winds, the tree died. It had been cut so the taproot was not fully engaged in the soil. It was covered with clay, and so even though we watered it very carefully year after year, those first 2 years, the water would roll off the clay and the tree withered up and perished. So my son, being a mechanic, installed a 35-foot flagpole and put it on a divot so that it would go up and it would go down so we could place the lights on it. And so for the next 10 years, and at night, would take those lights down the 1st of January, and then in December the following year, we would change light bulbs because we would lose 20% of the light bulbs that were cracked or burned out. We would replace the ends that were rusted or corroded. And it would take us a day or two to reassemble those and then attach them to a halyard and then run the 1,200 lights up the pole to get ready for that year's ceremony. At the end of 10 years, neighbors started hearing about it and offering their services. So for the next 15 or 20 years, neighbors started to donate their time, and especially Barry Pilger and his wife Catherine, who actually took over and re-engineered and every year designed something new. And when the halyards wore out and we needed 1,000 feet of more rope take care of the ones that had spoiled and rotten and were breaking and replace them, or get new strings of lights. The neighbors came together. So for the next 20 years, we've had neighbors, and we've had lots of them over the years come and celebrate with us in December to put the lights up and put those trees on and the lights up. So it really does represent our back door porch light. So 3 years after the fire, I received a knock on the door at 10 o'clock at night. And I looked out, and it was a PG&E truck and a guy in a PG&E uniform. So I opened the door, and he said to me, I just came across the bridge, I saw the tree, and I want you to know that I live below you. We lost our home in the 91 fire. And the very first night, I was tucking my boy into a motel room, and I kissed him goodnight, and I walked out and I turned the lights out. And he says, Daddy, please don't turn off the lights. He said, I'm afraid. He said, that the fire comes again, I want the lights on. He said, well, we moved into our home just last week. And from his bed, he can actually see your tree. And I kissed him goodnight, and I walked out. And he says, Daddy, he says, yes. He says, you can turn the lights off. He says, we're home. And he says, you remember that nice man we saw on TV? And he says, there's a tree in his backyard, and it's a tree of hope, and it's to remember us, and it's to welcome us home. He says, Daddy, we're home, and you can turn the lights out. And it's something that is a symbol for us to let people know that we will not forget. One person asked me once, Russ, you must have a huge electricity bill. I said, well, I'm not really sure, except I do know that I keep a can of 3-in-1 oil because the meter runs so fast in December that we don't want it to burn out. And to end the interview of this tree, I would end it with one thought that we have, and that is that whenever we do a good deed, you're never sure of who you touch or who you reach out to and what it means. But for us, the lighting of this tree for the past 29 years, and now for the anniversary of the 30, is very symbolic. It does represent, we will not forget the people who perished. And instead of lighting the tree just in December the 15th, we now light it on December the 1st, because there have been so many people who have perished, so many people who are hurting and have lost their homes in California fires, that this tree can be seen from the Golden Gate Bridge. It can be seen from San Francisco, from San Mateo, from Jack London Square. It's located in a very high altitude of 1,400 feet, and it represents the life of those that have been lost, and it represents the courage and the strength that people have had to rebuild and come back in the neighborhood.